You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but how do you not have any family?
Val jumped straight into it while we sat on either side of the fire. I closed my eyes, inhaling slowly, then exhaling, and opening them.
It's a pretty tragic story. But according to the shrinks at the VA, I do need to talk about it. And, well, you're the only person I've got. So let's start from the beginning. My parents were childhood best friends, childhood sweethearts, and got married just after college. They were from a town with a population so small they couldn't fill a stadium. Well, after getting married, kids were the next step. The pregnancy was problematic to start with, but Mom decided to keep going. My life cost her her own life.
I started staring into the fire, less at Val as I kept going.
It destroyed my dad. I mean, I get it now, but it took a long time to get there. He had everything he could have wanted, and then not only lost his wife, the only woman he'd ever loved, but I was stuck in the ICU for months. He could have also lost me at any moment, even as he's already mourning his wife. He started drinking more and smoking. He did try, but it was like the life had been drained out of him. When I was 6 years old, I came home to find him dead on the ground.
My view into the campfire didn't stop when exclaimed, "Jesus!" I kept going, focusing on the flames.
Initially, I was told it was an accident, but really, he'd taken his own life, and my grandparents were just trying to spare me at least a small fraction of pain. And I mean, no one's trying to explain suicide to a small child. I went to live with my mom's parents after that, since my dads were in a retirement home. Things were good for a time. Pop took me huntin' and fishin'. Grandma always made sure there was something to eat, and a lot of hugs. I got hard into Boy Scouts, went after every merit badge, my 50-miler award. I refused to be stopped, and then, to double down, joined JROTC in high school. During freshman year of high school, I got my Eagle Scout. It's the only time I saw Pop shed a tear. Things were getting better, until I was 15. Pop died after a pretty massive heart attack. I mean, honestly, he drank, ate bacon as a food group, and chain-smoked cigars while doing farm work every day. It wasn't a mystery. Grandma passed in her sleep almost to the day 6 months later. So, by that point, I was 16. I didn't have anyone anymore. And kids at school, they didn't know how to deal, so they avoided me. I got my emancipation, used the life insurance money and odd jobs to keep up the farm, and finished high school. About a week after I graduated, I shipped off to Army boot camp. My Eagle Scout, JROTC, and ASVAB, and advanced testing scores brought me in as a specialist.
I was nearly motionless as I kept going, just staring into the fire like I was watching a movie.
In the Army, things got better. Everyone around me was morbid as hell, and I'll admit, morbid humor came pretty easy to me. I became a combat medic, and at 19, I did the obvious thing and married a stripper. Her name was Kendra.
The humorous tone was forced, but then again, I was used to forcing it.
Neither of us had anyone, which I guess is how we bonded so quickly. Of course, my CO wasn't exactly approving, just shaking his head and laughing when he found out I'd done it. But we started proving them wrong. We got an apartment together near base, and I went out on deployment overseas. The field was a much different environment, and yeah, I saw some stuff you can't unsee, but none of that damaged me all that much long term. I helped as many as I could, including locals who didn't have access to proper medical care otherwise, as well as our soldiers. I signed up for another tour, and by the time my deployment ended, I was a sergeant. I was on a shore rotation after that, and about 6 weeks after I got back, Kendra told me she was pregnant. I was terrified and kind of thrilled. We talked about things, and given we were living in a studio apartment, living space was a bit of an issue. So I suggested that we could move back to Martin, my hometown, and she could stay at Pop's till I finished my last tour, and then I'd be back. My 2 tours, getting work as an EMT, wouldn't be terribly difficult, and the house was paid off, so the bills wouldn't be an issue. We finished up getting things ready while I was on shore, and helped her get settled just before deployment. I was grateful that my shore time lasted long enough to get to be there for Heather's birth, my daughter. I named her for my mother.
I had to pause and take a slow breath. I could feel my heartbeat picking up, but I had to get through it. I focused, trying to do it as I would if I were giving a report.
We went back out, and in the course of things I got shot. I got the guy who shot me, but very few of my unit survived. It was an ambush. They injured this little boy and made sure he was where we would find him. Of course, we'd been warned about tactics like that, but I mean, it's a kid. We broke from orders to try and save him, and came under fire from both sides. All in all, the boy and 3 others of us were all that remained. Our Humvee was annihilated, no saving it, and we had to track for a few clicks to catch up with our own forces. I got the bullet taken out of me and put on limited duty. Doctors said I'd make a full recovery. Everything was looking good. And that's when the floor fell out. I was pulled from the front in Germany when I got the news. Kendra and Heather were dead. A long-haul trucker had fallen asleep at the wheel. I'm told they didn't suffer, that it just happened too fast. But I don't know if that's true. Or it's just something they say to try and make you feel better. I remember the conversation. But like it was a movie, not my life. There was just this pit forming under me, trying to swallow me. So many people told me how strong I was, how brave. I wasn't. I was taking care of others around me to keep from dealing with my own life, 'cause every time I came near it, there was that pit again.
I heard Val set down her bowl.
I can't even imagine.
I deadened out the emotion, same as I would in combat. It was something to be dealt with later. I had to finish.
I kept it going for about a month or so, when my own mind started betraying me. Of course, people were trying to be helpful about it, telling me nightmares were normal, but they weren't nightmares. I'd go to sleep at night, and there was Kendra, alive, Grandma, Pop, and there was Heather. The screaming wasn't the dream, it was the waking, and it went on every night for months. I went to sleep, and they were alive, and I got ripped away from it to be plunged back into the nightmare. Being alive. I got put out of the service, PTSD, and shipped off home.
Val moved around the fire and I could feel her take a seat next to me.
At first it was a relief. Kendra had become fairly well known around town, and I had people there that could grieve with me, and then it changed. Their grief kept going, but I was starting to move on. After about a year, I started trying to date, at least casually, but a familiar theme began to emerge. The women liked me well enough, but Kendra was now a saint, and they could never live up to her example. Pop's house became the mausoleum for everyone I'd lost, and I realized I couldn't stay. I packed up what was important to me, sold the house and property for $10 to another couple who were starting a family. I traded in the minivan for a pickup, and I drove out, not knowing where I was going, until finally I landed on Oregon. I got an apartment in Wood Village, got a job with EMS, and put in over at the VA. Dating stayed pretty much the same. As soon as women found out about Kendra and Heather, it was done. Finally, kind of sick of the whole thing, I got the idea to maybe buy some land and build on it. Kendra was obsessed with these things called earthships. They're these fully self-sufficient homes built with nature, rather than apart from it, so I figured, might as well do that, as they were kind of fascinating to me. I went out a few times, surveying the land and finding a proper spot to get started. And then I got abducted by goddamn aliens. How have you been doing?
I started laughing, way harder than I should have, as Val sat next to me, wiping away tears, then joining in.
Oh, doing great, aren't I? Stuck in the wilds of an alien world fighting for the freedom of the entire human race. You know, the usual grind.
We kind of just sat there for a bit, laughing hysterically, until finally I got it under control.
All right, Val, I showed you mine. Time to show me yours.
She shook her head.
God, you're morbid. Afraid mine's not as colorful as yours is. I mean, I grew up pretty normal, all things considered. I got into track and field in junior high. I was good. So good, in fact, I got a full ride at UCLA after high school. I was obliterating every record in high school I could get my hands on. Yeah, it got harder at the college level, but that just meant I had to train harder. My coach was talking in earnest about the Olympics, and then I fucked it up. Despite class, training, and tournaments, I made time for parties and boys. Well, right at the end of my sophomore year, I got careless one too many times and got pregnant. It completely broke my shot, and I lost my scholarship since I couldn't compete. I considered other options, but I just couldn't do it. The boy in question basically disappeared as soon as he found out, and I was on my own. I left school, at least with my associates, and had to move back home with mom and dad to have my baby. It lacked a certain amount of dignity all around, on top of the shots to your dignity that come with being pregnant and giving birth. I picked up work at an office in downtown, mostly for the health insurance, and went nose to the grindstone, as my dad loved to say. He had this whole thing about perseverance. It got annoying. I bought him one of those demotivational posters, and it reads, "Perseverance, the sign of someone too stupid to know when to quit," with a picture of a man in a suit getting thrown out an office window. I didn't stop working out. I just found pregnancy workouts. 'Cause screw it. I can hold on to some of it, at least, then get to work on getting back whatever I lost from pregnancy. My daughter is Cassie, short for Cassandra. I'm guessing right now, she's living with mom and dad again. After she was born, a few things changed for me, but really, it just made me more determined. I was a single mom, and I want her to see that it didn't mean giving up everything. It was that same fire from before, but a change in direction. I might not get to be an Olympic champion, but damned if I was gonna just sit at home. I pushed myself at everything, and thank God for Tanya, my sister. She helped out so much. I started up at the climbing gym as soon as the doctors cleared me to get moving again. I also pushed at work, got promoted, and started online courses with PSU. By the time Cassie was 3, I had a proper degree in physical education, and I was eyeing Mount Rainier. I could literally see it on my drive home from work every day, like it was just there, taunting me. And then, got abducted by goddamn aliens.
I chuckled.
Man, it's scary how much we've got in common, ain't it?
She was smiling.
I'm gonna use the word unique.
I nodded and got up stretching.
Ready to make the bed?
Val set aside her empty plate and rose.
Might as well. So how do we do this?
Hey everyone, hope you loved the video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe for more awesome sci-fi content. You can also support us by hitting the thanks button at the bottom of the video. Your generosity goes a long way. Every bit helps us bring you more stories from the stars. Thanks a bunch.